There is a saying by Leonard Cohen who said, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." And I think it reflects the same idea that Rumi's quote says, "The wound is where the light gets in." Now, the Easter is not the absence of pain, of struggle, of heaviness, of frustration, of throwing your hands up or going down into the painful experiences. But Easter is transforming some of that. We live in that tension in between the crucifixion and the new life. And that's why you remember the risen one appears with the wound marks, not without them. And so we carry those wounds in our bodies, in our lives. And that's what Paul, our St. Paul, whom we're named after, mentions. We participate in the suffering, in the pain of Jesus, and in our pain, where our hearts are broken, where we hit rock bottom. That's where Jesus hits the rock bottom also. And Jesus' suffering is not complete yet, but we participate in it. And into that depth we're drawn in. You all know the art, the Japanese art of kintsugi. A beautiful piece of pottery just shatters, falls apart. What do? They bring it back together, glue it together, and the cracks are filled with gold. Where something is broken, that's where gold, where light comes in, where the light of the Eternal One shines into us. I think the Living One, God, wants to touch us where we're hurting, in the wound, in our pain, in our suffering. That's what Easter is about. Now, I've experienced that in this beautiful, beautiful way in an Orthodox Easter celebration. That wasn't 6:30 sunrise service. That started at 11 o'clock at night, Saturday night. We were in this crowded sanctuary. There were the sound of music. And right at straight midnight, the priest was up front, one candle lit. One single candle made already a difference in this dark sanctuary. But then the light spread, and out of one candle, there came 2 candles, 4 candles, 8 candles, 16. And the whole sanctuary was lit, not just by the candles, but by the reflection on the light on the people's faces. And then, right after the service, everyone took the candle. We walked out of the church to the graveyard right next to the church. The stars were all up in the sky. And everyone went with his and her own candle to the grave of the closest relative, the one whom they loved the most, who made a difference in their lives, and placed that candle right on that tombstone. Easter. The pain, the grief, the heaviness, the brokenness is not gone. It's still there. But there is a light shining, and the light that we carry to that place where we are being touched, where we are being transformed. Jesus meets us in our fear, in our brokenness, and the promise of the angel and the promise of Jesus is that he's walking with us. The with, you can almost imagine, the little word with, is the most important word right after God, because God does not come without anything independently, but God is always a God with us. Jesus walking with us, Emmanuel, God with us, on the journey to Galilee, on the path where the people, the fellows, walked to Emmaus. That's where he's revealed, where he appears to them. So Jesus, God with us. That's why the incarnate, it's real. Those wound marks are real. Jesus in the flesh, in the body, in our body. Not just a spirit or a ghost or elevated beyond our lives, but in our lives, where the candle brightens something up, where the living one meets us in our wounds. Because of Easter, life is not a dead end for me. We live with hope. We grieve with hope. And the pain and the suffering and our wounds do not disappear, but they're being transformed. Grace flows into us through our wounds, through our suffering, through our cracks. That is so beautifully illustrated by this true story about two women who were residents of a senior center for independent living in Englewood, New Jersey. Their names are Margaret Patrick and Ruth Eisenberg. Margaret is Black and Ruth is Jewish. Both are accomplished pianists and spend most of their lives giving lessons to aspiring children. Each, Margaret and Ruth, suffered a crippling stroke. Margaret Patrick barely survived. She spent months in the hospital and in rehab centers, finally regaining movement on her left side. Her right side is still paralyzed. She says often in halting speech, "I'm happy to be alive." Ruth Eisenberg is a wisecracking wit. She now laughs about the moment when she suffered a stroke and lay on the floor of her apartment undiscovered for 2 days. Ruth recovered, but she still does not have use of her left side. She's confined to a wheelchair. The two women met after both were referred to the center by their doctors. They soon learned of their mutual love for the piano. One day, they sat down at the center's ancient green piano. Margaret's long black fingers moved back and forth over the left side of the keyboard. Ruth's shorter, stronger white fingers carried the melody on the right side. They sat close together and leaned toward one another. Margaret's right hand draped limply around Ruth, and Ruth's left hand lay motionless on Margaret's right knee. Their first attempt was Chopin's Minute Waltz in D. It was truly a revelation to both. Since then, they have developed an extensive repertoire. They have performed for countless senior centers, veterans' homes, and hospitals. They have been featured on television shows. They are an inspiration to all who know them and who have heard them play. Says Margaret, "I never thought God could use us the way He's doing. We're so happy, and we thank God every day." This is the heart of Easter to me, where God can use us in our brokenness and creates beauty from it.